Fighting corruption is not racist. That's the headline of the latest John Locke Foundation research brief from Dr. Andy Jackson, director of the Civitas Center for Public Integrity at the John Locke Foundation. And this all stems from something going on in Rocky Mount that prompted an audit from State Auditor Beth Wood. Tell us about it.
Right. Well, the Office of the Auditor, headed by Beth Wood, is supposed to investigate whenever they receive complaints about apparent mismanagement or corruption. And she received over 200 complaints from Rocky Mount. So that triggered an investigation. They came out with a report, and they discovered a whole host of problems in Rocky Mount, not the least of which is that a member of the city council had over $40,000 in unpaid utility bills that were forgiven by the city.
Now, after this audit came out, there was some discussion of ways to help stop this from happening again, including some legislation, and it turned out there was some pushback.
Yeah, well, there was some. It turns out they after this investigation came out, legislators said, well, there ought to be a law, which is surprising that there isn't already a law against public officials being able to get these kind of things written off, helping themselves financially, in essence. And so they had a bill, S 473, had local co-sponsor from one of the representatives who represents Rocky Mount, push that. And it was voted, but in the Senate, and there were only 6 people who opposed it. So it was a small minority who did oppose it, but it was a vocal opposition.
And in addition to the opposition within the Senate, there was some vocal opposition outside, including some who tried to involve race in this.
Yes. It really was weird because, I mean, race is not mentioned anywhere, obviously, in the investigation by the Office of the Auditor. It's not mentioned in the bill. It just so happens that the city councilman in question, Andre Knight, is black. And so this was taken, and by the way, he's also the head of the Rocky Mount chapter of the NAACP, obviously related to the state NAACP. And so they took it and used that example there, or that one specific fact, to say that this is a racist attempt to change the law. And in fact, they went so far as to say that Beth Woods and the senators that were advancing this bill were using tactics reminiscent of 1898, which, as you recall from North Carolina history, was where the Democratic Party ran a white supremacy campaign to try to break up a coalition of Republicans and progressives, and that led to the Wilmington massacre and coup that overthrew a democratically elected government in Wilmington. And so it's really strange to compare this normal legislative process of trying to fix a real problem with a coup that took place 120 years ago.
You looked at Senate Bill 473, which has the short title Enhance Local Government Transparency, and you found that these are just good government ideas.
Right. And I mean, they should be in the law already, frankly. I mean, they have ideas like city council members, government officials can't use their position to benefit themselves financially. If they do owe the city or county government money, their compensation can be garnished by the county in order to get that money back. And it also prohibits those officials from entering into contracts with non-governmental organizations if they happen to be members of those same non-governmental organizations, which makes sense. You don't want to reward contracts to organizations that you yourself are a member of or represent.
This sounds like stuff that already ought to be in the law and should be relatively non-controversial.
You know, it was relatively non-controversial for a vast majority of the senators. I fully expect most House members are going to support this. I think some of the membership of the leadership, I should say, of the NAACP were trying to scare Democrats off of this bill. It largely hasn't worked, and I really hope and expect that this is going to reach the governor's desk and get signed.
You mentioned at the tail end of your research brief that Senate Bill 473, I'm quoting here, addresses the kind of incompetence and malfeasance that the Office of the State Auditor exposed in its investigation of Rocky Mount. I guess one of the other stories here is the auditor did her job, did a good job here in responding to as you said, more than 200 complaints and finding something that ought to be changed in the law.
Right, and that's what you really expect the Office of the Auditor to do. People see that there's a problem in their communities. They don't know who they can complain to in order to address this problem. Well, that's what the auditor's office is for. They made their complaints, and there was an audit. And in this case, they found some real problems in Rocky Mount.
If you'd like to learn more, you can go to the John Locke Foundation's website and find the research brief with the headline, "Fighting Corruption is Not Racist." Its author is Dr. Andy Jackson. He is director of the Civitas Center for Public Integrity at the John Locke Foundation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.